I am Joe. Hi guys.
Oh,
Hi, I'm Joe Iadanza. I am a spiritual teacher and a yogi and a meditator and a musician, spiritual counselor, and I live in Seacliff, New York, and I'm grateful to be here today.
thank you. And as I said, thank you for playing. I have no idea what this is about, to
Sure.
be totally and completely honest.
Oh, that's fine with me.
I just had an impulse. I had an impulse, and really it started because I had a conversation with a friend,
Hmm.
and we were Zooming, and somewhere, you know, along the line, it was like, oh, this is really interesting. So she like hit record. So
Hmm.
we threw that up there. And so yeah, and before I was thinking like, okay, what should we talk about? What should the questions be? And I just sat in the room and looked and just sort of heard talk about fear.
Oh, interesting.
So perhaps let's talk about fear and
Hmm.
see what shows up.
Fear is interesting. I think it'd be there are very few people, I think, in this world who could admit honestly, or even say honestly, that they experience no fear. Um, and yet, I think it's interesting as so many talk about, so many who have achieved some depth of self-knowledge, almost all of them would say that fear is not what you are. It's distance from yourself, distance from the divine. Like hell is distance from God, heaven is closeness to God, fear is distance from that, from yourself. And so yet, we do this work to try and get our fear out of the way, and even that implies that the fear is something that needs to be moved and not just looked past. And saying that, and on the other hand, saying that, like, I would be lying if I said that I don't experience fear or anxiety, or, in fact, that's what got me into this work, was anxiety and fear. Um, so yeah, so that's interesting.
Yeah, that seems that, right, that's where a lot of people are right now,
Yeah.
right, in this heightened state of fear and anxiety,
Yes.
with everything that's happening in the world today. What would you say, in your point of view, is the opportunity here with this heightened sense of fear?
Oh, it's funny. It depends. Honestly, it depends on your level of self-awareness. And I don't mean that in a snobby way or like in a spiritual way.
So let me rephrase.
Yeah, yeah.
What is the opportunity for you?
Oh, that's a great question. I can speak to that because that's what I've been working with.
You've been doing your homework.
Yeah. Well, I will preface that by saying, I noticed quite a few of my friends, even like folks who were deep into self-exploration, getting riled up by what thing that was happening, especially a month ago and, like, 3 weeks ago, as it was, and then crashing and into like some despair over the last couple of weeks, and having this kind of thought and even saying it out loud. It's like, guys, this is what we practice for. This is it. I take the perspective, whether I'm successful at it or not all the time. I take the perspective that everything that's out there is an extension of my inner state of mind. Nothing is happening outside of me. So I look at what's happening outside as an opportunity yet again to see where I'm blocked to love, where I still have shadows hiding, where I'm still attacking, so, and that's not just within myself that I am aware of, that also I see that when I look out at the world and I see somebody acting out in a way that's narcissistic, or someone who's acting fearful, somebody's acting racist or angry, or whatever those things are that are happening. I say, okay, even if I'm not feeling that myself at the moment, that's still me. And so it gives me an opportunity to really take a look at that and offer a real deep forgiveness for everything that seems to be happening around me, knowing that at some level I am an active, integral piece of that. And so that's how I work with it on a moment by moment basis.
Would you say that there is, and of course you share what you feel like sharing,
Sure.
is there a particular fear that's more prevalent for you during this time?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, everything, I definitely, if it creeps up a little bit, it's like work and money. There's everything just kind of hit a brick wall. I do everything I do is on a freelance or self-motivated basis. So I was, um, this last month I was supposed to be in the South touring, playing music and leading workshops. Also, this is actually the first time I had married, um, a music tour with a spirituality workshop thing, like where I was doing places where I was doing both at the same time, or even, sequentially. Um, so it was interesting that such a huge shift had happened, and I was planning a tour for September and October and for the fall in Europe, and that's been pushed away too. So like that, plus I do some other work on the side and workshops and other things that I lead. The whole world has stopped for me here.
Mm.
And so, yeah, and I have some savings and all that kind of stuff because I've been taken care of, and I know I have over my life, in so many different ways. But yeah, it creeps in. It certainly creeps in. It's like, and then what do you do with that? That's when you stop and you breathe,
Yeah, it's
And
interesting. Yeah, that you do
yeah,
that as you were, I was watching you, and it's like what so many people are
yeah,
experiencing, right? So
yeah,
like this loss of finances and this fear, and what's literally happening to people who are affected by coronavirus is they can't breathe.
yes, 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 yes,
So when you
exactly.
said
You're
that, it was
right.
like this is sort of like this holding of breath on a collective level
Yes,
almost, right? And
right.
also symbolically, we're holding our breath to see what's next.
That's right. And you gotta breathe if you can. It's interesting, right? Because breath, especially from a meditation perspective, is something we use so much to see where we're at, to get settled. And here's people who are literally, this is your next step. I'd be curious to speak with anyone who had success, on a ventilator. I'd be really interested to hear where, because you don't need even the breath is not what necessary for meditation, and yet we use it. But in this place, I'd be curious to see who might have been able to sink deeper into some place, even with that limitation of having something else breathe for them.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't want to diminish. It's easy to talk about all this stuff and to look like we're riding above it in a way, and I don't want people to think that, not because I care what they think about that. It's because it's really important to understand that this is an active practice, and life is showing you something, and so this is where we dig in. And if we're not able to because of our own fears and our own limitations, then that's fine too. We'll keep practicing as we can, and we'll get another chance. I'm feeling like I've been able to stay with it. I've been able to stay with it.
Yeah. What would you say, like when you say this is a time for, that it's a practice and it's the time to dig in? What does that mean for people that perhaps
Mm-hmm.
are not aware or familiar with that?
Um, I would say it's a good time to stop for a moment, like to just stop. And that's, I know, the hardest thing to do for some people, to turn off the TV for a moment, whether it means just stepping outside and taking a deep breath and really seeing the beauty of what spring is bringing right now.
Mhm.
A friend of mine had just mentioned, get outside and, scrunch your toes in the dirt, connect with the earth. For me, it often means a morning getting up and doing my morning practice of meditation, some kind of asana or exercise to help start the day in a grounded place. Even if that way I mess up later on in the day, I've already started with a good foundation, and that sets my mind in a place where I'm more apt to catch it and be able to then again stop. And throughout the day, I give myself reminders. I have different practices that I use that, even on my phone will light up for me and like give me a reminder, like to stop and remember this lesson today, or, just take a breath even when eating, to just stop and enjoy a few moments of eating and count the things that you're grateful for. That's another beautiful thing that I do, and I think is always really helpful. Whatever it is to create some kind of a sacred container for your process. And then hopefully, and hopefully if you have that, maybe then you eventually can lead that into an ability to be really observant of your thinking patterns that are happening around all of this, and be able to watch them and start to realize maybe in just the observing of that you are not all of those crazy thoughts, that there is some aspect that's watching that can look at those thoughts without being pulled away, or begin to look at them without being pulled away. And then if you take it then even maybe to the next level, to be able to feel with objectivity the emotions that may be coming up around this, and learn to work with them, to breathe with them, and to really move through them rather than squash them back down or push them aside or try and deal with them later. So those are it's a lot in a little, but any one of those little things can be helpful,
Yeah, absolutely. You know what I noticed, that I live by a nature preserve, and one of the things that I personally most enjoy doing is going to places that are isolated or quiet or just, unspoiled in nature, because you can really, I remember being in Alaska and being in the tundra and just hearing the silence, right? To me, that's what's most nourishing and really feeds me.
Yeah.
And now that everyone's quiet and there are less cars and there are no planes, in addition to just the sky, everything looking so much more clearer, it's like I can hear the silence now.
Yeah.
Which I was never able to do here.
Here
in New York, in Long Island. And I really appreciate that, because that's a reminder that it's always there.
Yeah.
Right? It's always there, and we're being, we're quieting down by necessity, and we're being reminded of what's always there.
Yes. Amen.
Yeah. So I love that.
I took a walk. There was a pretty big storm today, but there was that was wild. But there was one, maybe it was a week ago or something. There was like a pretty good storm, and right at the end, it ended around sunset. And I went out for a walk, and I smelled the air was so sweet. And I've heard that phrase before, like many times. And I've been to Alaska, and I'm upstate New York a lot. But there was just something about the air that I had heard that description before, and until that moment last week when I really smelled it, I could smell the sweetness in the air.
Yeah.
And I think that was a first for me. And so there's there's that paradox, right? There's something truly devastating happening,
Yeah.
and on the other end, there's something really beautiful happening. And as a mystic, if I could use the word, we learn to hold both of those things. How important it is in this time for us to realize and recognize how much we need each other. And it's more than just we need each other in proximity, or we need each other to connect with each other and just to check in with each other. It's we absolutely need each other for our health, for our awakening, for everything that's happening in our lives. You can go, even if you want to be a yogi, go sit in a cave or in your living room or anywhere else for 6 months or for whatever it is, and think you've become beautifully connected to something deeper. And maybe you have, but then you come home and spend a month in close quarters with the people that you love the most, and watch how that can tear you apart. Don't forget how much you need these people and how much they show you where you're blocked to love. So when you feel yourself getting pushed around and your buttons are being pushed, realize that those are your wounds, and you can begin the process of softening them and opening back up to everybody. That's me. But
just a little something.
A little something, Joe.
Thank you for that. Yes, it's so important, and I think that's part of what the opportunities, right? Is that here you are, look at each other.
Amen.
Yeah, and for the people who don't have that, perhaps it's an opportunity to reach out and connect when
Yes.
perhaps they haven't, they've been scared to do so before.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Well,
Thank you,
my friend.
Joe. Thank
Oh,
you.
my friend. I'm very
Thank you.
grateful. It's good to see you.
Thank you.